Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Important Decisions. It's been about 2 weeks since I've been able to drop some content. I spent all last week down in Kentucky for National Bourbon Week. I'm going to put some things up on my story about that. I might share in another episode that experience. But I want to welcome you to tonight because I want to share with you a brand new label that's out there. It is an NDP by a couple of gentlemen who I got the pleasure to meet, spend some time with, do some barrel picking with as well. So if you haven't heard of them, and it'll be hitting at least the Kentucky market right now, and that is this bottle from Tegrity Bros. I don't know how well you can see that there. This is Source Juice. This was their first, from what I understand, their first barrel pick outside of just a group pick. This was the first one done at a retail store. This was done through Cox and Evergreen Liquor down in downtown Bardstown. Miss Crystal picked this bottle with Derek and Kevin, and I was sitting there a week ago Wednesday during half price night, and we had just done a tour elsewhere, and we're sitting enjoying some pours, my father-in-law and I, and Crystal breaks out this bottle. And I asked her if I could have the first pour of it. She was hyping it up and talking big about her ability to pick good barrels. And no joke, she cracked that bottle, and I got the first pour of it, and based off of my first sip. Not my second, not me waiting for other people's approval, but my first sip, I bought 2 bottles. And this is juice that, from what I understand, is technically 12 years, but the label had already been done, and when they picked it, it was at 11 years, 11 months, but it actually rolled over into that 12-year mark. And this is at 139.52 proof. It's an absolute banger. The color on it's amazing, and I sampled it that first taste, and I was like, ooh, there's something very, very familiar about it. Yeah, I just poured 2 Glens, and I'm here by myself. That's because I'm going to pay homage to my man Brad Culp with Pour and Broke, and how he does the open it, where he does a neck pour, and then he does a pour that's been rested for a few minutes. Because my first pour was the neck pour, which, again, I think the neck pour is just the phrase. It basically means a brand new first crack. Nothing different about the juice, obviously. It's just you let it sit out for a little bit. We all know how they change, they open up, subtle characteristics change. I noticed that earlier in Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A122. I just killed that bottle, and something was so vastly different about it. Anywho, we're gonna flip back to Tegrity Bros. I'm sitting there, and there's a gentleman a couple over from me, and then another fella sitting on the corner of the bar, and we immediately got into it. And that first nose, it made me feel like something that's very near and dear to my heart. But I kept my mouth quiet because I didn't want to influence anybody, didn't want to. The power of suggestion, we all know that's very real. We talked about this with other distillers over the week, even just tour folks who talk about what people think they get, or what, and they try to push that on to other folks. And I'm a firm believer. You know, I may open a bottle and not like it. The next time I come back to it, I'm in love with it. But if I tell you what I'm smelling, what I'm tasting, and I keep reiterating that to you, at some point you're going to want to agree, and you might start sensing those same things. But what you smell is what you smell, and it's something that's familiar to you. So I let those fellas sample it. The nose on it, no, it's the same. It's absolutely. I know what I get. I get some nuttiness. I get some dark fruit. I'm not getting real sweetness on it. And the nuttiness should give it away. And the one fellow was trying to guess a whole bunch of different places, and I just looked at him and said, I'm almost 100% certain that's Jim Beam juice. And he was like, no, it's not Beam. It's got to be, oh man, he ran through the gambit of different places. You know, he thought it was some sort of Bardstown. He thought maybe it could have been an MGP, but this was distilled in Kentucky, bottled in Kentucky. In fact, it's bottled at Old Louisville's new location, 2600 South 7th in Louisville. You have to ask Amin to correct that address, but these guys are getting warehouse space on the second floor of this rick, and they get to bottle there. And so it's amazing seeing Amin let new craft distillers come into his place and house and bottle and taste and everything. So I told him, I thought it was almost certain that it was Jim Beam, and then we got to taste it, which I'm going to do again now. There it goes right there. This is absolutely Jim Beam. Crystal was running around the bar because, again, it was Half Price Wednesday. If you've never been there, and if you've never been there during National Bourbon Week, they got that bar packed, which is a tasting bar inside the liquor store. The unicorn game's going on, and I shout out to my father-in-law, Kurt, who absolutely sucks at that game, and he knows it. He tried for 3 days to find the unicorn, never could. In fact, the 2 times he got one of the unicorn bottles, it's because I gave him my unicorn or a stranger gave him one because they felt bad for him. But aside from all that, they got the unicorn game going on. The tasting bar's full. People are coming and going. And then they had 2 vendors there providing samples. So that was awesome. Larrikin was in there. Oh gosh, 1792 was in there. So it was a great time. But Crystal came back and we finally pinned her down, and she confirmed this is 12-year Jim Beam juice. And all due respect, I'm not sure, again, I tip my hat to those folks at Beam. They put out some great juice. However, how the fuck do they let this barrel go? Because this to me is what Booker's should be. It is absolutely amazing, and I know Booker's obviously is a blend, but man, if they started with this barrel or any of the other barrels that may have been sampled that day, which there's different opinions on which one was the best, but I think Crystal picked an absolute effing banger. This one comes off, it's got that oakiness to it, because again, it's 12-year juice. It's got that nuttiness that you get with Jim Beam. That nose, as you sit there and let it go, that fruit comes out in it, and it's oily. It coats the glass so well, and I'm just a fan of this. So I'm hoping that of the 3 samples they sent me home with from an event with them on Friday, that I got a barrel that we might pick out of here. And wow, it just overwhelms the palate. Not so much like a burn or anything. I mean, again, this is 139.5 proof. And there's a little bit of a hug that comes on if you take too big of a gulp. But it, for me, checks all the boxes again of what a Booker's or a Little Book should be. How this barrel escaped Jim Beam, I'm not sure. But I know that Kevin and Derek have definitely kicked things off on the right foot. And it sounds like from the barrel picks that they've done with some groups, they got a pretty good following starting off. So they're, you know, it's a little bit pricey, again, but you're buying somebody else's juice that's been sitting in their rick, and there's a cost to everything. So I think out the door, well, I'm sorry, before taxes, this was $159.99. And truth be told, I think it's worth every bit. If Booker's went to that price, but it tasted like this, I think people would still buy it. Unfortunately, you know, they're retailing $89.99, and they've kind of been the same. It's been status quo. But this pour, a great great barrel, not a blend. It's a single barrel, and that's what these fellas are going to do. They're going to go after single barrels, uncut, unfiltered, very much like my videos, except I am going to pause this for a few minutes just so this other glass can rest and get a little bit of a difference, and I want to see what that difference tastes like. But before I do that, I got to spend, so this was all on Wednesday night, and later in that evening, Derek, one of the founders of Tegrity Bros, was in there. I chatted with him about it, and I really did rave highly about what they had put into this bottle, that they had picked something well. And they had a rye that they had also done a barrel pick with Evergreen for, but I was committed to two of these, and I just couldn't justify buying the rye as well. But it was no slouch. God bless, that was every bit of what it needed to be as well. That one, I believe, was an MGP barrel, but it was up there again, 10 years, and that's their first public release of a rye, and they're coming out of the gates running. These are pretty good guys. They're local guys with normal jobs. One lives in Louisville, one lives down in Bardstown, and they're just trying to make their mark, carve out their little piece of the pie. And I cannot blame them for it, because this is absolutely delicious. But spoke with them on Wednesday. We talked about that on Thursday they were doing a tasting there of some other expressions, other barrel picks they had done. So we came back that day, chatted with them, and I shared with them that I was going to be in Louisville to go to Amin's place on Friday, and that's when they let me know that that's where they're actually storing their barrels. And when I say they're storing their barrels, these fellows aren't sitting on a ton, they're starting it out small because that's what it takes, and so we agreed to meet, talk some more. I shared with them that I'd love to get some samples to do a barrel pick, and I showed up and met with Amin, hung out. If you haven't been to Old Louisville's new location, it's absolutely gorgeous. He's putting the final touches on the welcome area, which they have their merch out there. They have some sofas and tables and chairs that you can just sit and have a pour and socialize with folks. They have a tasting bar that's been set up, and most of those samples are all it's a bottle from their different barrel picks that they've done or releases that they've put out there. So some really good juice there, and as always, Amin was more than welcoming. Basically, hands me a Glen, says let's go sip some whiskey, and that's what we did. And we toured around the place, and it's got some good history, and I can't wait to see how he helps it evolve. And they currently have 10 different labels being aged in his ricks. And of that, you got to think it's kind of unheard of, because he's an NDP himself. He's buying barrels. He's making some of the stuff accessible to others. And he's doing it simply to spread, I don't want to say the gospel of whiskey, but he wants to open up the community and keep everybody, moving forward, which I think is a real amazing thing about who he is. I've called him salt to the earth, just because he seems to be able to connect with all types of people, and he really is that. So got there, hung out with him for a bit. Kevin and Derek showed up, spent some time with them. We talked about barrel pick. And grabbed a bite to eat, came back, and these guys weren't effing around. We were upstairs before I knew it. Actually, there was about 5 barrels they rolled out that were brand new ones, all bean product, and I have samples of those here that I'm going to get with my tasting group and figure out what we can do for a barrel pick. However, immediately after that, we hustle ourselves up to the 6th floor, where there's 60 barrels up there, and we were trying to help these gents identify 10 that were worthy of purchase. And for many of y'all, you've done at least a flight of whiskey, 3 to 4, maybe 5. Many of you may have done barrel picks where you're sampling through a number. Maybe you've done multiple barrel picks in a day. If you've done multiple barrel picks in a day, or if if you've been that person that's had a flight, you went somewhere else, had a flight, you know that your palate just gets fried. It's just it's a lot of whiskey juice coming through, and it can just wreak havoc on your taste buds. So imagine 60 barrels. It just rose. And all we did was start popping the bungs on them. And fortunately, enough of the barrels come from the same, there was a couple different lots there. Same distillery. And as we worked through these, it was just like shit. You taste it, dump it, spit it, because you're just looking for those outliers. You were looking for that one barrel that's like, oh, this one aged a little differently thus far. And all of these were right around that 8-year-old mark. So we're getting into where they're losing that youthfulness, they're developing some deeper characteristics, and some of these barrels, these gents might buy, and they can let them sit for another 2 to 3, 4 years and see what they really evolve into. And that's what's going to be exciting. So we did our best to help them. I tapped out, just because we had to get back to Bardstown, tapped out right around that, about that 15th barrel. I was like, I think y'all got this. We'd identified at that point maybe 3 or 4 that were worthy, but there were still another 35, 45 barrels to go through, and there was just no way anybody was doing that in a single day. I think my record once I sampled, just about 40 barrels out at the Henry farm. But I want to wrap it up just by, saying, don't discount the new person on the block, the new kid on the block. Give them a chance, taste their juice. And, some of these folks they're spending that money to buy these banger barrels, and they're putting out some great juice. And yeah, it's going to have a high price point, but if you can sample it or try it before you buy it, give them a shot. This one came to me out of the blue and absolutely wowed me. Honestly, I think it was the best first crack I've had in quite some time. And some of that's the luck of the barrel. And is what it is, So, excuse me, I got a dog that's making a bunch of noise, and I'm gonna have to pause my camera here for a quick sec. And I'm back that quick. As I was saying, there's a lot of new NDPs out there. Hell, there's some people out there putting out their own juice, and it might be young. Give it a try. If it's too young for you, does it bring what you like? Wait a little bit. Don't discount them and write them off yet. I was sitting in a restaurant at the bar last week, and the bartender, they had a host of whiskeys up there. Obviously, it's Bardstown. And I asked about a brand, and she just talked shit about it. I asked about another brand, she talked shit about it. And then she tried to steer me towards something that's a little bit more mainstream. And I get it, the mainstream, your Heaven Hill products, your Sazerac products, your Wild Turkey, your Jack products, Old Forester, Bardstown. Yeah, most of those are going to hit where you need them to hit. But you got to try the smaller ones, because you might just miss out on something unique. And she just talked shit about them, and I was quite a turnoff. So I intentionally ordered one that she had said, oh, I hate this one, I think it's the worst. I actually had the bottle here in my back room, but I hadn't opened it. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna buy it anyways. It was like a $12 pour. And you know what? It checked all the boxes I needed for my dinner with my grilled pork chops that were smothered with too much sauce and glaze and fried onions. But I don't know. I hear folks again, and I talked about this in that episode of Tater Bottles versus Shelfers, is people walk past a lot of great juice looking for those allocations, looking for those rare bottles. And fuck, don't get me wrong, I love those allocations. I love those rare bottles. I was fortunate enough to get some pretty good stuff while I was down there, and even a couple bottles once I got back home here. But you never forget about those other ones that are just starting out, or those shelfers, because it just might surprise you on what you're drinking. So I'm going to come back to this one here because it's been sitting out long enough and I've been talking long enough all by myself again. I need to get some fellas in on this, and I think we'll do that tomorrow. Again, there's again, I just get like, this is what fucking Booker should be. It is absolutely marks all the boxes for me on what whiskey is, bourbon is. You know, it's not finished. This is straight like, damn, that packs a great punch. But it's not a punch that's, you know, out of the park. It's not smacking you like a 139.5. To me, honestly, this comes in feeling like it's maybe 120. And people are still going, oh, 120 is so high. Yeah, it is, if you're used to 80, 90, or even 100. But if you get into those higher proofs, 120 can be pretty damn smooth. And this is amazing. I'm going to look forward to adding a couple drops of water to see how that opens it up. And fuck it, let's just do it right now, because I got a water dropper right over here. It's gonna be a long episode. It's been a while since I've chatted, done my shit. But so I'm gonna put some drops in. I'm gonna do 3. Give that a swirl. We'll see what this does to it. And some folks, again, you drink your whiskey how you want. From putting it in neat, to putting a rock on it, putting it all over ice, mixing it with a Sprite. I don't give a shit how you drink it. There's a great bar restaurant down in Champaign, Illinois that does an infinity blend of an old fashioned, and if I recall it correctly, last year they used a Buffalo Trace store pick, they used a George T. Stagg in there, and they used an old Rip Van Winkle. And people thought that was blasphemy. And I'll say that was a great fucking old fashioned. Pricey, but it was a great old fashioned. From everything I've heard, Elmer T. Lee loved to drink that stuff with Sprite. It was never drank neat for him. So don't let somebody tell you how to drink it. I will say try it in different ways though. Don't be afraid to try it neat. Then maybe put a couple drops of water or put a cube in it and see what that does. The water definitely opens it up. Wow. There comes a lot of caramel. Let's go. Wow, that settled it down quite a bit off the finish. A lot of toffee across the tongue. Definitely can feel that age. 12 may not seem like an old age for a lot of folks, but you can get that oak coming out of it. I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time licking trees, but it's there. So hell, I ain't got nothing else to say. That's goddamn good whiskey. That's a great barrel. I hope these boys keep putting out bangers. Check out Tegrity Bros. Right there. And check out Cox's at Evergreen Liquors. Man, if you're lucky to get your hands on a bottle of this, I commend you. You won't be disappointed. I'll be sharing this with some friends, and I'm gonna try to surprise them with it, not let them know what they're sampling. So, have a great night. Make important decisions. My name is Jason Homesteader. It's been a pleasure. Hey, if you think these are worth the shit, hit the like, please hit the subscribe. I'm just trying to get the subscriber count up. I got a Facebook page, I got an Instagram page. I'm trying to do it all, but I'm a guy in my mid-50s. I don't know shit about social media too well. And hell, I probably barely know anything about whiskey. But I do know I like drinking it. I like sharing it with my friends. So, peace. Have a great night, y'all. And, you know, be good to one another. A lot of assholes out there right now. And I just think it'd be decent for us to be decent to one another. Cheers.